Hey, I'm Alex Rackle from Board Game Co, and today I'm doing a rapid-fire review for Sovereign Shōgun from Phalanx. So rapid-fire reviews are a format on the channel where I attempt to give you a brief overview of the game, how it plays, and all that, as well as my thoughts and opinions in 10 minutes or less. Sometimes I make it, and sometimes I don't, we shall see, but let's dive into it starting with a few general notes, disclaimers, things to be aware of, all of that. Number one, this is a prototype, all rules and components subject to change. I believe already there's like missing the Sakura symbols on the board with the temple areas. This thing's prototype, things will change. Number two, there'll be a link down below to the campaign page. You can go ahead and check out and get the campaign, get the game if you are interested in, which brings us straight to number three. Phalanx does have a large number of outstanding campaigns. I don't believe that's inherently cause for alarm, but I do believe in backing responsibly and awareness above all. So like, do your research, due diligence, all of that. And number four, all play is a channel sponsor. We'll talk more about them at the end of the video. With that, Sovereign Shōgun is a game in which you are attempting to win. I mean, that's basically what you do in most games, but you are attempting to win. This is a competitive game for 2 to 5 players in which you are going to be controlling your particular, like, empire, nation, whatever you want to call it. I guess they're all in the same nation. You're shogunate or all that. You're shogun. I guess it's called Sovereign Shōgun after all. And you're trying to do that primarily through either controlling Sakura, which we'll talk about, but area control, or alternatively winning battles, or the giant cat that walks past you on the table. But one of those two things, battles or the Sakura. The Sakura you can get in 3 ways. Number one is various zones on the board have a Sakura symbol on them. You start with one, that's why we all start with one over here, and as you expand to other areas on the board, you can expand your Sakura presence. That's number one. If you begin your turn with 7 Sakura, you will win the game, but you can get Sakura from controlling areas on the board. Additionally, the temple areas will also have Sakura printed on them, so you can get Sakura from there, and then lastly, you'll have 2 cards you start the game with over here. You can accomplish these secret objectives in order to earn Sakura that way. So basically, accomplish goals, control areas on the board, and control temples, and begin your turn with 7. I say begin your turn because players have the opportunity to try to take something away from you before your turn begins, so like, win, but also make sure people can't stop you. That's way number 1 to win the game. Way number 2 is going to be winning enough battles. I mentioned prototype rules, components subject to change. So for example, I believe right now it's going to be 7, but that's something that might be changing around. But over here, we have the battle track. When you win battles, you'll advance your battle marker up the board, and when you win 7 battles, you'll win the game. And number 3 is if at the end of the game, you'll check to see you'll check to see the combination of those tracks, and whoever has the highest wins over there. So those are the way the game kind of ends or wins or all that. What are you actually doing in the game? On your turn, you're going to take an action. You have an action selection system, which basically involves taking one of these tiles, activating that tile to the strength of where it's at, and then shifting this down. This is an action selection system you may have seen in a lot of games, the most famous of which are going to be a Sid Meier's Civilization New Dawn, Ark Nova, but it's basically your 5 core actions, and you activate an action at the strength it's at before moving things down. So you want to take an action at the strongest level, congratulations, you can do that, but then you can't take that same action again at the strongest level for at least 5 turns. You could slowly work your way up until it's eventually by like, the 2, then the 3 or not. You can move your way up the board, but you'll have to wait a while if you want to take the action again at the strongest level. So you have these 5 actions over here. Harvest is going to be gathering things based on your buildings that you have out on the board. You'll be getting resources from those as well as bonuses from the spots over here. Movement is exactly what it sounds like. You'll be moving around the board. That's often how you get into those little combat and finagling and try to get your area control. We have mastery over here, which is going to allow you to recruit units as well as to perform the upgrade of your units. There's lots of things you can upgrade in the game, from your units to your board over here to your tiles themselves can be flipped to the upgraded side as well. Development is going to allow you to get another upgrade action in your building, as well as placing more buildings on the board. And diplomacy utilizes your leader to do a whole lot of things, to wander around, get movement with your leader, as well as placing units into temples. Temples are very important. That's going to be these regions over here, where you can place your units into, and you can expend units from those little boxes in order to cash in on the benefits. But until you do so, they're kind of locked over here. Meanwhile, when you upgrade your tableau, you are trying to slowly build new buildings onto the board. As you spread around the board, you're building new buildings, leveling them up to subsequent levels, and eventually getting even stronger top level bonuses, which will give you all these when you do X gain Y kind of benefits on this top row. So the first 2 levels are going to be giving you harvest bonuses, and the second level, the 3rd level, is going to give you just general abilities. That's kind of what's going on in the game. Rinse and repeat the action selection mechanism of taking 1 of 5 actions at the current strength, trying to be mindful that you're trying to optimize your strength, but sometimes an action at a lower strength is the right action action for the situation, as you slowly expand and grow outwards onto the board, engaging in various combats, hoping to win those combats because that'll help you win the game, while hoping to gain influence in the various Sakura regions, either the regions on the board, the temples, or the 2 cards you got in order to win the game. That's a pretty detailed overview. I don't know how far we are into this video, but that's where we are. Let's go ahead and talk about the review part of things. Starting off with the first question I always ask in these rapid fire reviews, am I keeping it? And something I realized, by the way, I've realized this slowly but surely, I don't know why this is, but I find more often than not, if I'm doing a rapid fire review as opposed to a regular review, more often than not the answer is no. And this time the answer is yes, for now. The for now is important. For right now, I am keeping this game. It's a prototype, granted, but for right now, I do want a final copy of this game. But the for now is important because I do find area control is a tricky genre for me that I used to love and play a ton, but as my group has shifted over time, I find area control gets played less often, and that makes it a little more challenging to pick and choose the best of the best, the area control games that are most likely to get played. Which brings us, I guess, to the why. Why am I keeping it? Why or why not? And so for right now, I am keeping it, but with that mindfulness as to whether it'll hit the table relative to other area control games I love. But as far as the why, because the action selection system is very straightforward, very clever, and the levels of which you can upgrade your faction over here, the different ways you can upgrade your troops, the different ways you can upgrade your tableau, the different ways you can upgrade these, you're never going to be able to do it all in any one game, so you have to pick and choose what's going to be your unique advantage, and a lot of that's going to be determined by the board state, the levels of pressure different players are exerting on you, the other players' strategies, and so you're kind of incentivized based on player interactions, based on the subtle diplomacy shifts at the table. You're incentivized to upgrade your tableau or any of your characters or actions in various orders. And so the action selection system over here, it's a very clean action selection system. You can also pay a coin to get stronger actions, that's neither here nor there, but it's going to have you trying to figure out what is your puzzle, what is your order activation puzzle. This almost feels like a Euro game, but in a game that's going to have a lot of combat and rolling dice and attacking each other and trying to find those little ways to, like, you know, spread out. The temple bonuses over here, this is a huge part of the game that is incredibly satisfying. Getting your diplomacy upgraded over here, upgrading this tile to be able to go ahead and then get a +3 bonus as you wander around, placing units into various regions, keeping in mind that you are locking those units off. You have a limited number of units until you upgrade your units, giving you more units while making them more powerful, but even when you upgrade them, you still have a limited number of units, you just have more of a limited number. And trying to place those into the various temple regions on the board in order to activate those bonuses and to get the secure presence, that's all incredible, but everything has a trade-off. Also, I should say, if it wasn't clear already, if other players have more units in here, they'll get the bonus instead of you. You can still activate this bonus, but you won't get the secure presence. So there's all these trade-offs you're trying to do as you figure out how to deal with the emerging landscape, how to deal with the other players as they try to grow their nations, and how to ultimately outmaneuver them through clever or efficient action selection. As far as other game recommendations you might want to check out, the original Dirk Hen's Shōgun is a game that I loved for years. It was one of the games I discovered when I was first getting into the board game hobby, and I had it for years in my collection. It is such a satisfying puzzle, very different, but if you like the setting and area control and you want it in a different vein, well, there's several games named Shōgun, so you can check them out, but Dirk Hen's Shōgun is definitely one of them. And if you like the action selection system, I mentioned it briefly already, but Arc Nova is going to have that action selection system, but in much more of a Eurogame engine. As far as a counter opinion, why might this game not be for you? Well, first of all, like many Euro games, like many area control games, it plays better at higher player counts. I find some games, whenever it comes to like a kind of a big box area control, dudes on a map, I find they usually are better at that 4+ player count. There are certainly exceptions. There are some that shine at 3 players. There are even some, like less frequently, that shine even at 2 players. I think this is one that operates best at 4 to 5 players, fine at 3, and at 2 I wouldn't necessarily recommend it so far. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I think it's really going to be a 3+, and if you can, 4+ player game. So something to be mindful as far as whether it'll hit your table as often or not. Secondly, this game does have, again, something that's present in area control games, especially ones in which you kind of have to wait around for your turn. That aspect of the gaining all your Sakura, but then having it taken away before your turn begins, that can result in a game of keep away, otherwise sometimes known as kingmaking. A player goes ahead and achieves their 7 Sakura, but before it's their turn, someone else has to stop them, and so other players have to expend their energy keeping you from winning, which means somebody else is able to go ahead and slip in, and eventually you have someone who can't be stopped from winning. This game does have those dynamics because of the nature of at the start of your turn win conditions, it's something that usually doesn't bother me significantly, but it is something worth being aware of in general. And then lastly, we haven't talked about it a lot, but the dice. The dice are going to be a central element of combat. There's going to be lots of ways you can roll more dice, but ultimately you are rolling giant handfuls of dice in combat, and for a game that's otherwise incredibly strategic, having a dice roll just not go your way, that can be something that takes away from the feeling of, look at how I did everything correct in this game, and nonetheless, I kind of whiffed and you didn't, and so now you won the game. As far as final thoughts on Sovereign Shōgun, I like this one a lot more than I thought I would. I've always liked this action selection system. Every game I've ever played with this system, I love the puzzle of trying to figure out what's the efficient order of taking one action over another, and these systems, I find they do operate best when it's not so obvious to wait till 5, and this one is definitely one that's not so obvious to wait till max power. Sometimes you won't even benefit from max power, so you're trying to figure out the right cycle at any given point, and I do enjoy this system, and I do enjoy it applied to a clean area control game with a ton of different ways to upgrade your tableau. Ultimately, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. It is a solid area control game that, for me, like I said already, the biggest question is just, is this one destined to hit the table when I have a lot of area control games that are very excellent? As far as Allplay being a channel sponsor, I mentioned at the beginning, they are a channel sponsor. If you go to allplay.com, you can find a variety of games from a variety of publishers, and if you're in the US, you can get $4 flat rate shipping for any number of their partner publishers. If you do like area control and you want something very unique and very intense, check out Wonderland's War from Druid City Games that you can get on the site. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Macklin from Board Game Co. I hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.